We are here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Rex Parks Commission. The time is 6:31, and we're going to call the meeting to order and conduct roll call. Vice Chancellor LaFleur.
Present.
Commissioner Hurt.
Here.
Commissioner Morego.
Here.
Commissioner Ono.
Here.
Commissioner Siegel.
Here.
I'm here. And Commissioner Vink and alternate Commissioner Redmond are not here. Okay. Let's move along to item number 2, the approval of the agenda. If anyone doesn't have anything to change or discuss, can we have a motion to approve the agenda? All right, moved by Commissioner Ono.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Siegel. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Passes. All right. Number 3, the next item on the agenda are brief announcements from the staff, commissioners, and council liaisons. Are there any brief announcements from staff? Let's start with you first.
Yes, good evening. It's really good to see everyone's faces back together in the same space. I had provided a couple of directors' updates while we were adjourned, and so I want to follow up on some of those updates that were mentioned as being sort of in progress at the time. So the first one is the slide hill stairs. Those have been installed and are complete, looking very nice. Actually, there was sort of a variety of revitalizations that occurred at that location all at once. So the Watchman deck, which is actually an art project, but I mean not an art project, but it's in the arts inventory. But that was undertaken at the same time as the stairs project by the same contractor. And then in addition to that, we had a water fountain that had been down for some time and required quite a bit of effort to actually get back up to be operational. And that has actually been fixed and is working.
Nice.
So fantastic on Slide Hill. Second, the long-awaited Walnut Courts resurfacing project. Very, very close to being done. If anyone has walked by there recently, you'll see the courts are looking beautiful. At this point, we are just waiting for the custom pickleball barriers that were actually ordered in response to some requests from the pickleball organizations. So those are on their way if they haven't arrived already, and they will be installed soon. We are looking to do a ribbon cutting for that location toward the end of October, so stay tuned for an invite on that. A couple of other brief project updates. We recently removed a couple of end-of-life wooden arbor shade structures, one at Whaleback Park, one at Westwood Park. That wouldn't be something that we would normally sort of bring to this level, but I do find it worth noting because it was something that we undertook internally with our own staff, and really proud of that project. The community park shade structure, the repairs are mostly complete on that structure actually. If you notice, the footprint on that is not as big as it used to be, and that really was to capture some cost savings related to how big it used to be. There's a lot of rotten beams on that, and so we did reduce the footprint on that, but it is still quite large if you've been by there. So painting on that is actually occurring right now. Similarly, the Arroyo Shade Pavilion, that project is actually in punch list territory, which means we are pretty much done with it and just actually doing the finishing touches on that. We won't be doing a ribbon cutting for that particular project, but I encourage everyone to go out there and take a look at it. It turned out really beautiful. And we're excited to actually fold that into our inventory as a rentable facility in the future. The senior center patio, if you drove by tonight, you might see that that structure is actually up. So the framing for all of that is in place, and that project is actually right on schedule. So we anticipate that those, and it included some bathroom remodeling. So there's some interior work, and then the pavilion, of course, outside, and that is looking to be wrapped up in November. So really excited that that is stayed on track. And lastly, our community park bathroom. We have just received the latest specs for that prefabricated bathroom. It's looking very nice. We just approved the latest layout and specs for that, and we are awaiting some cost proposals for the actual prefabricated structure. So once we understand that, we'll be back to this commission for further updates and information about siting. We have had a couple of really big events occur over the last month or so in the city. One of those was Make Davis Sparkle, so I do want to recognize Commissioner LaFleur for actually showing up to that and being a power washing pro for that.
Let me know if you need help at home.
Activities that were undertaken as part of that event included some bulb out refinement and work, maintenance, some pruning, power washing. We had over 50 volunteers show up for that event, which we actually co-coordinated with DDBA and the Chamber. And actually the entire UC Davis basketball team showed up to volunteer for that. So it was a very successful event, and we're looking to have many more over the next year, and Chamber will be taking the lead on future scheduling of those. And then lastly, we had our Splash Pad groundbreaking event, which was held last weekend, and that was also very, very popular. Many people showed up to that event, way more than who typically show up for a groundbreaking event. It ended up being quite lucrative in terms of fundraising event. Many bricks were sold. And so it was fantastic and a great way to connect with the community, share information about where we're at with the project, which if you've been by Central Park, you'll notice that the fencing is up, that the earth is being moved, and we are underway. So all looks good with that as well. And I want to thank Commissioner LaFleur and Commissioner Marigo for showing up to that. Lastly, in terms of programs, I wanted to get everybody tuned in to something that is new and wanted to put this on the radar, that in response to some community input, we will be coordinating an inaugural holiday market at the farmers market this year, and that will be on December 7th. I will be sharing more information about that as well, and you will see some flyers go out on social media and to this commission. At this point, the idea is to have a children's market there where children can actually come and set up booths to sell crafts and other wares to earn money for the holiday season. And this is something that actually we've seen in other communities, and it's very popular in those places. So we do want to try it here, in addition to selling of holiday crafts, which we feel like will really appeal to our aspiring little entrepreneurs. It will be an opportunity for families to take photos with Santa, have some cookies and hot chocolate, carolers, and the whole shebang. So more information to come on that, but it is something that the concept is continuing to evolve, and we do hope that you will join us for that event. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have one update for the commission. Recently, the management team took a look at our downtown services, and there are areas down there that are under Parks purview, some of those contracted and some of those not. Because of the staffing limitations that we have in parks, a lot of those services were deferred maintenance items, and we kind of put our heads together and we redeployed one of our full-time staff on a special assignment downtown. And so he will be working down there. We're calling it downtown beautification. The areas that are under Parks purview are Trash and Litter, the Portaloos, Hunt Boyer, G&E Street Plaza, and the bulb outs down there, as well as some areas around the theater. So he'll be down there actually doing similar responsibilities that a parks maintenance worker would be doing in the parks, except for this is a more urbanized area. And so the responsibilities that he will be completing will reflect those needs more so than those of a traditional park.
So this is just a redirection of a full-time person, it's not a new position?
Yeah, so one of our senior staff, who's been with us a long time, so senior staff, was pulled out of the East Side team, and he's been deployed downtown.
Do you see this being permanent, or is this something more?
Right now, we are hoping to make it permanent, but obviously resources will dictate whether or not we can sustain it long term. We've redeployed some TPT assignments to the team that lost that individual. So right now, they're doing things like trash and restroom services. which enables our full-time staff on that team to just go right into the landscaping and the safety aspects of what we do. So making sure that we're still on top of our playground inspections, being able to still mow in a timely fashion for a lot of our multi-purpose fields, and then also some of the other additional landscaping responsibilities that they have.
That's great. Any commissioners have any brief announcements?
Yeah, I was also at that groundbreaking on Saturday. It was a marvelous event, it really was. So I just want to ask, I get this newsletter from the pickleball folks, and there was expressed some reservations ultimately about the engineering and the playability of the courts, and it was hard. I mean, we're really happy that this came together. It's beautiful, but kind of thing. Are those major issues, or is this kind of like, was there some lack of communication in the process, or how'd that fall out?
I think staff feel very confident that we've worked with the various pickleball interests from the beginning of this resurfacing project. In fact, as I stated earlier, the pickleball barriers were custom ordered in response to a request from the pickleball community, in addition to adding an additional gate to this project.
So will the barriers address some of the concerns that they raised?
It will address the issue of barriers, which they, specifically requested and asked for. So I feel very, very good about the degree of interaction that we had with the community on this project, and think it is a great example of how a project actually should go. Now, whether or not every single person is, 100% happy with the outcome, of course, that we cannot guarantee. But in terms of the interactive process with the community, I feel like absolutely staff listened to the wants and needs and actually expanded the scope of this project, which, to remind everybody, this was a resurfacing project, which just included resurfacing the surface. It didn't have anything to do with ordering gates and barriers, and that was actually never really in the budget. So we actually did have to go into contingency funds to make sure that we could include that and be responsive to those requests. So to answer your question, I think we did the best that we could, and we feel really proud of the project, and we're excited for it to open.
Great. Anything else? All right. Well, we'd like to open the floor to public comment. So this is a time for the commission to receive comments from the public. This is not a time for discussion or action, and only brief questions for clarification may take place. During public comment, a member of the public may address the commission on matters not listed on the agenda or are listed on the consent calendar. If possible, citizens should reserve their comments for regular matters listed on the agenda at this time. Is considered by the commission. Speakers will be asked to line up at the podium and state their name for the record, and comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. Any public comment?
First of all, thank you my name is Michael Beckman, this is Ron Forrest. Thank you for being a commissioner. I was actually in your shoes 10, 12 years ago, so appreciate you volunteering your time. The purpose of our presentation, brief presentation, is to introduce you to Tom Robinson, and at the end of the brief presentation, we'll have a recommendation for you to consider. There's a bio that was sent to you by Tom recently. Tom was typical of Davis dad. Some of the highlights include from Tom are 2.5 years served in the Peace Corps, 3 decades, University of California Research in Computer Science Technology as a profession. He lives with his current wife, Kim Peterson, and he's a proud father of 2 kids, Josh and Kayla. He volunteered at AYSO, DYSA, and PTA president. Just in general, like I mentioned before, typical Davis dad, who really contributed in a great way. He has contributed in a great way, continues to. Unfortunately, and one other thing too, from 2000 to 2015, roughly, I played soccer with Tom, know him pretty well, so same with Ron. 2008, we transitioned to pickleball, and actually really enjoyed the game. We played on Monday nights, regular basis, pickleball for a team of us. Unfortunately, around 2023-ish, Tom found out he was diagnosed with ALS. It is terminal, and he's starting to feel the symptoms, unfortunately. So, anything I missed out, you want to add to?
No, I've known Tom similarly for 24 years. He's done a lot in the community, he's a lot of friends, he's very active. As Mike points out, this disease, as you probably all are very aware, is a terrible one. It affects the muscles, and particularly the muscles in the lungs. Makes it very hard to breathe. So he's experiencing a rapid decline. It's a little more rapid than his wife and friends had hoped for. But he sends his thanks, Kim and Tom, thank the Commission for entertaining this request, which we'll get to, of course. And his bio, and as Mike says, I applaud you for your volunteer work. I do a lot of volunteer work around town as well with the City of Davis Police Department and the Mondavi Center. Yeah, in summary, thank you for your time and your consideration. Tom has a very strong place in our hearts and our thoughts.
What is happening?
Thank you. So the recommendations are pretty simple. The courts are being rolled out, grand opening, ribbon cutting in October. It would be nice to maybe just name the courts after him possibly. It's nothing spectacular. My recommendation would be consider be just a simple sign, Robinson Courts. We don't need a plaque. We don't need anything else. We don't need an explanation. It'll be nice too to signify, hey, we're playing tonight, Robinson Courts. We know that. There is some small, simple sign, just to designate that, to dedicate his honor. So if we consider that, we'd greatly appreciate it. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other public comment during this time? Okay, we're gonna close public comment then. So we're moving on to item 5 on the consent calendar. So all the matters listed under this consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial, require no discussion, and are expected to have unanimous support. The consent calendar will be enacted by one motion. Commissioners may request that items be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Is there any item that anyone would like to discuss, or would there be a motion to approve the consent items?
I so move.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Morito. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner LaFleur. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, item 6, great. So this is item 6A, and we'll do the review of the summer recreation program and activities, and we would like to have Ann and Christina.
Hi, good evening. How are you all doing? We're back at it. My name is Ann Marquez. I'm Community Services Supervisor with the Parks and Community Services Department. I actually celebrated my 24th year with the department back in August, and I brought in 2 dozen donuts to celebrate that. Next time, I will invite you guys to have some. There was a few left over. I oversee outdoor education, summer playground programs, preschool, special interest classes, drawing a blank there, field reservations, and I think a few more things I'm forgetting. But for summer, that is our busiest time and the most things we have running. So we've put together an image for you. It's kind of our highlights, if you will, of how the summer went. Start with it. Our enrollment was pretty much almost spot on last year with the number of enrollments. So we had 3,992 enrollments. That translates into just shy of about 1,700 unique kids. In running reports for last year, we were off maybe about 15 or 20 at the max kids, approximately, room for error on my report running in RecTrack. Last year we had 3,994, so 2 different enrollments. We had a bonus week 11 this year, the way the school district calendar went, those numbers aren't included in that because it's not typical to have 11 weeks. We had 100 and I believe 43 or 34, I'm diagnosed with dyslexia, for that week. That's a tough week for us to run because we have a lot of college students have left us. So we did it with one in-house camp. It was called Endless Summer. That was based over at Slide Hill Park. And then we had several, I believe 3 different contracted programs that were running programs for us. Everything was full. Parents were looking for that last week of that care. Next year we go back to a 10-week summer. But coincidentally, the way the school district calendar goes, week 10 next year will be almost exactly the same dates as week 11. So we will have to plan accordingly on what we're able to staff. We tend to ramp down as summer gets down to week 10. And since week 10 will be kind of a fake week 11, so late in August, we will have to adjust since our staffing models change. As summer goes on, we tend to see staff less available and more sick. So something tends to burn through a camp and then it unfortunately makes the round. So a new camp we had this summer was cake decorating. It was full with 31 participants. It ran for 4 hours, 4 days a week. It was based over at the Veterans Memorial Center. It had a wait list of 41 in it. So we are looking potentially to add a second week depending on space. Space is a little bit of a theme because I'd like to add that we had at least 1,800-degree plus days this summer, and that's a logistic issue for us trying to reload kids to locations since most of the parks do not have an immediate nearby indoor facility. So that did require a lot of collaboration with Unitrans, changing predetermined schedules and routes and trying to move them there, communicating to up to 500 people enrolled in programs if their program was impacted and they needed to find an alternate location to pick up their child because it wouldn't be where they had dropped them off potentially. We utilize ePact, which is our digital waiver permission slip software. We're able to send out emails through that and text messages, so we're able to kind of react quickly. And since we knew some of the days were coming, we were able to give people a heads up and let them know via email and at camp that their location was going to change in the afternoon. I'm trying to tell you. We increased spaces at Slide Hill Camp, Rainbow Summer Slide Hill, as well as Shade Arbor. I think we were able to take about 10 more at Slide Hill a week, making it one of the bigger camps. Summer Quest has about 65 max, and we were up to 60 at Slide Hill. It's a really great popular program. It has little transportation issues because their pool is right there. The only days they leave is on Friday to go over to Community Park for a fun Friday event with all the camps. We were able to add, I believe, about 5 spots to Shade Arbor. We offered, this summer, we did have a few less weeks of Trekkers. Last summer, if you were here on the board, that was the first summer we relaunched it. It was not without a couple hiccups, staffing being secured late. So we decided to downsize this year. So we went to 3 weeks. They were generally all full. I think we're looking to add a 4th week back next summer. We did have to change locations, at least 2 of the trips, due to heat. So when we go forward, given that I think heat's going to be a theme for us from here on out, unfortunately, we will need to maybe be more cognizant of choosing like coastal locations and not Shasta. So we pivoted from there. We ran a few weeks less of Summer Sampler, not by any issues. It was popular, but trying to coordinate the use of vehicles. There are some vehicle needs for Summer Sampler on their Camp Huda Day, where they go out and they will bike ride over to Camp Huda. They'll do archery, tie-dye, canoeing, a lot of the traditional things. But support staff need to come with water cooler, some other supplies that we can't put on our back during a bike ride, as well as an extra support staff and a lifeguard that meet us over there as well. So we're trying to be strategic in the number of vehicles that are going out on a week, because if Trekkers goes out, it takes both of our available pool vehicles. Some other highlights here, we had a 65% retention rate in staff from last year to this year. I think a lot of that is due to our strong rec leader and training program. They come in, we provide lots of skills to them that they can take to potentially volunteer in our programs or potentially become a leader, but there's a lot of things to take away to any job about how to be a good employee, how to build a resume, interview skills, public speaking, that's a requirement of it. So there's lots of things they take away. So not everyone comes and becomes a volunteer in the long term, but there's a lot of skills they take away that are applicable to anything they're going to do. So we had 65% of our staff come back, which is great. We even had some veterans come out of retirement for Camp Huda. They weren't planning to return this summer, and they actually turned out, they like, hey, I'm gonna be around, and we actually had a need a couple of the weeks, so it was great to have some familiar faces back there. We actually reached out to a former Camp Huda leader who is now a nurse. Commissioner Marigo's daughter was a camp counselor for us, and we put her in contact with our camp manager who was going into the nursing program and wanted to have somebody to talk to about the Chico State program that she went to. His daughter Razzle was one of our senior leaders back in the day. So we were able to connect that, so it was great. Some of our ongoing things we have is indoor space is going to continue to be a little bit of a challenge. So we have to be wary of how much we plan indoors or how much we offer in a week, because for every kid that's out there, potentially we have to tuck them in the afternoon. So going forward, we might be looking at more morning-only half-day programs so that we leave the afternoon available with either less kids or indoor space where we can put them in. Some of our indoor programs, such as Play Well, Mad Science, Cake Decorating, Fashion Camp, they're generally in there all day. So they take up whole space and it's not usable for another group. So there was a lot of thank you to Christine McClellan and her staff of like coordinating, like, okay, this group's leaving at 1, you come in at 1:15. This other group's gonna leave at 3, that camp will go back there at 4. And then we'll come over here, I'm on first, you're on second, and we got it done. It's a lot of hustle there. We also used the scout cabin over at Slide Hill for the first time in numerous years. We had been misinformed that we were not allowed to use it, and then found out in the off season that the city actually is the one who I think owns it. So we do get to use it. So we brought that back into rotation. Unfortunately, having 60 kids plus potentially 8 staff, 5 to 6 volunteers made for a real cozy environment over there. So I'm not sure that AC is quite up to being a regular heat shelter for us. So we did have to pivot from that location a couple times when 112 is just, it's not going to cut it. I don't know what the temperature was in there. It wasn't horrible, but it was not as pleasant as we would have hoped. So we had to move to that location. But it's a nice place to have, so we can do some indoor programming in there in rotations of kids at times when weather allows. A couple other things for us to take into account. We had some, Christine will talk about it, some unexpected pool repair closures that caused some logistic issues for us. Again, working with U-Trans and 100-degree day, we pivoted, made it all work. Some camps maybe lost out on their extra day of swimming, but everyone, sufficed. We brought out watermelon, Otter Pops. We bought out the whole town of Otter Pops to kind of keep giving these kids something, a little treat to perk them up because, 105 is a little old. A couple other things coming up. UCD is raising the pricing for the repairing reserve for Camp Huda. And so we obviously will need to build into the cost that we capture it, because the pricing structure will change over the next 3 years. What else I gotta tell you? We had 114 volunteers. They provided 9,700 hours of support. We want to say we can do without them, but we can't do it without them. They are just an exercise of eyes and ears, connection to the kids, especially maybe when one of the other leaders isn't something maybe they like, or for whatever reason they have somebody a little closer in age, and they really kind of can build that connection. It's a great experience for them. Essentially, because of our rec leader training program, we can kind of continue to retain staff because we kind of grow them, and eventually they can apply. Of the, I believe, 18 staff we hired for playgrounds, 15 of them came from our volunteer program. So we were real excited because we kind of invested a lot on the front end, and then we get to reap the reward in the future years. We had about 20 outdoor ed staff, 17 inclusion leaders, and 61 playground leaders. I would say that's a little bit up since we increased the enrollment in a couple camps. We needed to add support for that. We had lots of great feedback from parents. A couple things maybe didn't work well. We already noted and made changes to that, but generally we had a good success rate and feedback from participants. For inclusion, I don't directly oversee that coordinator anymore, but we work closely together because they provide support in our programs. She saw 35 different families that we supported this summer, and that resulted in about 2,100 hours of inclusion support, which was down from last year. Anything else? Any other questions? I think I'm just rattling fire rapid at you real quick. If you have questions, please let me know, but it was a good summer. By this time of year, I tend to forget anything that was not great about it, so that's kind of like childbirth maybe. That's how they hooked me to come back again, but it was a good summer, minus it was blazing hot, and that did drag on a lot of people. But otherwise, we had a good summer. We're already in the planning stages for next year.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
Question.
go ahead.
I guess I would turn this thing on. Very impressive collection of stats. Yeah, it speaks well for your program. I was kind of curious as to where the attendees come from. So I know Davis Schools, I think the number is something like 17% of the attendance of Davis Schools are from Woodland or outside of Davis. Do you have kind of a similar makeup of where your attendees come from, or how does that work?
I didn't run that report. I know in the years past we've done it. It's not a significant number, but it is, because in theory, they build connections and families and friends here at this community while they may not actually live here. A lot of the parents still work here. My child, who is here, is now well grown. She was an attendee at the programs as well, and we lived in Natomas, and now we live in Woodland. So there are some, but I don't think it makes up the majority by any means. I would imagine it's under 10%.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So very impressive, and I have to say my grandchildren enjoyed it very much. Bike trips out to Poudre Creek and so on, very nice. I guess I'll ask you the same thing I asked a year ago, which is wait times.
Like wait
able
lists?
to accommodate everybody, all the children who want to be on it in these programs. Do you have any sense of what the wait lists were like?
We'll still have our archived numbers of it. I don't have it off the top of my head. Some of the different weeks, Kids in the Kitchen, I think at one point had 60 on a wait list. We have 8 full weeks going at 25 kids a week. We don't necessarily have another space to put another session of it, but we could easily run another session at the same time, but we don't have a location for it. But for PUDA, the wait list varied as they do every
Well, I
year.
didn't mean just Poudre, I meant in general.
Yeah.
Wait lists.
Generally, I would say
For all
people,
the programs.
because participants can get onto multiple lists, wait lists, some of our numbers are not sometimes always accurate because they're on 4 things for the same week and they're just waiting for whatever comes available. But they do, the wait lists are worked, so to say, and that report is run, I would say, every day. And then they assess who is taking action. People are given X amount of time to respond. They respond, we fill that registration. They don't, we move on to the next people. And so we try to be as efficient with that as possible. From right when we open up registration, within, I would say, the first week, people are already making changes because something is, they changed their vacation, grandma's coming to town, something has changed. So there's a lot of movement. So when people are like, oh, I'm never gonna get in, like, I don't wanna say that necessarily. You don't know. I've seen people come in from the 30s off the wait list. It just depends on what's happening that week. And my crystal ball is just definitely not as good as it used to be. So I don't make any hedges of bets to people. But, if you're in the top ones, there's gonna be movement because you're making registration in March for programs that don't happen potentially to August. And so much can change. So we tell them not to get discouraged and just, wait it out. But if they're, real nervous about it, then find something else.
So I guess maybe I'm not being clear. So when you gave your original data, it was something like 23 or 2,500 different programs, or kids were in different programs, which were 1,700 unique individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is, do you have a sense of how many unique individuals we're not able to get into?
We'd have to run that report. I'm sure we can get it. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that's kind of important, so we can figure out if there's ways to expand things to accommodate more children.
Probably need to run a report that analyzes who was on the wait list for what and if they found something else that week. Because if you got into X camp, we may not have seen you on the wait list for 2 other camps, so it's kind of a hollow list that you're counted 3 times, though you actually had something. So we probably have to do some analysis and figure out unique wait list to enrollment. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I imagine we can dig in a little bit and get that information back.
No? Yes. Commissioner Arnold.
Yes, thank you for administering a great program. It sounds like it's very successful. I had a couple of questions. I know summer of 2023, the Cannery Farmhouse was used for summer programs and it's air conditioned. Was that used much for this summer? I didn't see a lot of kids.
I believe Teen Camp was based out of that location. It is a nice location that we want to keep nice. And sometimes summer camps, that Venn diagram doesn't cross sometimes. So it's due to its location as well. It's not necessarily along a path of what we're doing. So it has been used. I want to say in 21 we had a third Rainbow Summer, and it was based out of Market Park. And that would be their indoor shelter. So it worked out good in that purpose, but the logistics, the acoustics in that building are, if you've been in it, it's a microphone, and with 30, 40 kids, it's a bit much. So it's not where we normally would go, but Teen Camp was based out of that program, at that location.
I'm familiar with the acoustics of that building. I live in the Cannery, and there is a ranch house that had the same acoustics. And the HOA had to spend for acoustic panels to make that usable, and now it's extremely popular. So that might be something the city might look at, the use of acoustic panels in the farmhouse, and it actually might increase the rentals, because it's not just the kids that are noticing the echoes, but if you have a party, have some type of event, it's very hard to hear in that building.
That's where I went and did some COVID testing when that was that location, and that was wild. It just echoed. But yeah, that's something the city can look into, is potentially, trying to dampen that sound to make it a more pleasant experience.
And then the only other question I had is, I saw the staff appreciation deeds. I was just kind of curious, for staff members who collected a huge number of beads, was there some type of...
Don't turn over your papers yet. Yeah, hold on.
That'd be under my section.
That's my section.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Ringo.
Just a couple things. One, did you find you had enough staff for all summer for leaders?
We did. I think we did. We did lose some as summer goes on for various reasons. But I think we were solid. Our truckers is a staff that's hard to secure. It's a 4-night, 5-day car camping trip. So we need somebody with kind of significant outdoor experience, but also kid experience. And sometimes it is a unicorn you're looking for. We did secure 2 staff, and we did secured them earlier, so we were very excited. We do know one of them is not planning to return next summer. I believe they graduated and they're moving on. The other one is going into their sophomore year at UC Davis. So the hope is that they will become our veteran and train the next person that we hire next summer, and then be a team, hopefully for another year. But in past experience, having at least one guy remain for that program and train the next one has worked out successfully for us. I believe we were pretty good on getting staff. I wouldn't say the same for probably some of the aquatics program. I think they continue to struggle. There has been some rumblings about pay, because the competition now, air conditioning in and out or whatever, it's $20 an hour. That's not quite where we can compete at yet. So we're trying to appeal to other purposes. And if we can get kids to be part of our program earlier on and keep them with them, they will grow a higher wage. And at that point, they're more invested with us and maybe have a loyalty that would stay, and maybe not as much. They're getting more out of it than potentially serving burgers. But we did do pretty well with staffing this year.
And then scholarships, do you have a scholarship program for the underserved?
Yes, we do. So the city has a fee subsidy scholarship program. And I don't know if it's been spoken to about, but maybe Deanne can elaborate on. There was a collaboration with the school district this year. I wasn't involved in that program, where opportunities were made available. They were able to register for something at no cost. I don't have all the details on that program, but that was available.
Okay. And my last thing is, obviously, as summers get hotter and we deal with 19 days or 20 days above 100 degrees, I know the schools can't go to schools, but is there any talk about working with the gymnasiums on those 100-degree days to see if we can use some of those facilities?
So SummerQuest uses Patwin Elementary, because they're based out of Royal Park now, so that is their heat shelter. So they were there quite a bit. The school district does charge us to use that facility, though, to open and close it. Our National Academy of Athletics is an outdoor-based contractor program. Generally, we have not, in the past, tried to provide a space for them, because they're a contracted program. The afternoon portions usually get canceled. This year, we agreed to split the cost with them to use Davis High, since they're a Baystaff community. Only the south gym was available to us because at the time of the heat, we had our basketball camp running in the north gym. But they charge us to lock up the facility, so there's a cost being incurred there. Kidder Camp is held over at, I believe it was Birch Lane, I could be wrong, maybe it wasn't, no, North Davis this year. Was held at North Davis. It's traditionally held at elementary campus, and it's ranged from Birch Lane, Montgomery. This year is North Davis. I don't remember we've used them in the past. And again, there's a charge for them to provide some custodial support. I know trying to get more school district spaces is difficult. They don't know necessarily as far in advance as when we're doing our programming where their summer school program is going to be, what school has construction that might be taking place that is going to impact their ability to provide a consistent space. Some of the elementary schools hold other programming. I believe there is a robotics program that's at least at one campus that is in a space, because I think we inquired about that and they said it wouldn't be available. So we try to utilize them, but know that if the costs we're going to be charged, it's going to have to go back into our cost recovery model of what we're covering.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Christina, we'll turn it over to you. I'll save my comments for the end.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Nice to see everyone again. Christina McClellan, Parks and Community Services Supervisor. I oversee our staffed and non-staffed rentable facilities, so the Vets, Cannery, Redwood Building, Hattie Weber, Community Pool Building. I think that's it. I think that's all of them. Also our aquatics programming, portions of some of our teen programming, and the Davis Children's Nutcracker. Tonight, I'm here to share some fun facts about our 2024 aquatics summer season. If you were here last year and heard me present, I was kind of talking a little bit about how we were dragging along COVID still and having to kind of open up very slowly for a couple of reasons: staffing, training of staff, them being familiar with kind of how we run things. And so I'm happy to say that this year was our first summer in 3 years since COVID that we are fully open. I consider us fully staffed. Of course, we would love a couple more staff, but we opened up our capacity back up to 350 people for rec swim every single day, and put our swim lessons back to full swim lessons, no parents involved. Unless that was the specific class that they were in. So it's nice after, gosh, I think 5 years, honestly, of being back into a normal type of setting, which meant we had to hit the ground running. And so our highlights this year we're excited about them. Our classes that we offered, one of our goals was to try and get more lifeguards in, and so that meant we had to figure out how to offer more lifeguard training classes and have the staff to offer the lifeguard training classes and make sure the staff were trained to be able to offer them. So in our off-season, our aquatics coordinator, Haley, offered a lifeguard instructor training class, which meant we could teach people how to be lifeguard instructors, which meant then they could go out and teach people how to be lifeguards. And so that freed up her time a little bit to have to use her work days or weekends to offer those types of classes. So we were, for the first time ever, we actually offered 3 normal classes during the spring, which we normally do, which all of them were full at 10 participants each. We did have a couple who didn't pass the class or who dropped after the first day because they couldn't make the required skills. But then we offered a summertime class. So we started our summer, and our second weekend of summer, we freed up a staff person to be able to teach a 28-hour lifeguard training class, which actually brought us 11 new staff to our team. So that was awesome. Second year offering our junior swim instructor program and our junior lifeguard program, and both of those were full at 10. We are still trying to add on additional classes of that. It's a little more difficult to add them in because we try not to add them in the first session because that can always be a little chaotic with just getting people into summer. We also have a lot of staff who have graduated high school or who haven't finished college yet, who are not there with us yet. If they just graduated high school, a lot of them take family trips the first week of summer, which impacts us. And then those who are still going to UC Davis or somewhere else, they're still in school. So it makes it difficult to add our supplemental type of classes versus our regular stuff. So we're trying to look at adding probably one more junior swim instructor class that would run we run 4 swim lesson sessions. It would run session 2 and session 3. Then they could volunteer to help teach swim lessons if they wanted to in session 3 and session 4. Our junior lifeguarding class is a class where we take middle school and under 15-year-old high schoolers to learn how to be a lifeguard. It's a 2-week class. They come for 2 hours every day. They learn how to be a lifeguard. Then they have an opportunity to shadow guard and learn what it means to be a lifeguard. And so they come in, they learn CPR, they learn first aid, they learn all the rescue skills. So just as it says, they are a junior lifeguard. We would love to take this program and expand it a little bit and really do a lot more with them as junior instructors or junior lifeguards, similar to what our junior rec leader program is, where they go into the camps and they're actually hands-on. A junior lifeguard's a little bit more liability for that than a junior rec leader. So as we're looking at it, we have to consider all of those things that they can be allowed to do and what they should be doing. So our swim lessons this year were a little bit less than what we had had in the past. This year we had 672. Last year we taught 836 lessons. Part of that decline is the fact that Arroyo Pool was shut down for a session. We did move all of the lessons over to Manor Pool, but not all the people moved with them. And so that shutdown hurt us a little bit. I also think, while it sounds weird, 100+ degree weather at 5 o'clock at night, nobody wants to be outside. And that weather, it is not fun to sit in the sun. And so I do think the heat impacted us this year when it came to swimming lessons and actually doing those. So we'll have to take a little bit of a deeper dive and see where the decline in each level of our swimming is to see. Sometimes our kids age out. You know, they start at 3 and 4, and by the time they get to 10, they know how to swim already, so they don't take some of those upper level classes. So we try and adjust for that as we can as we're going along, but we need to pull some numbers a little bit deeper and see what that trend was and why maybe we didn't get as many lessons. Our adult fitness classes are as strong as they've ever been. We max out in our water aerobics class at 20, and I had 3 emails today asking, why is it only 20? Why can't we bump it up? Well, we're bumping it up. There's no reason why we just set 20 as a number when we started. We were lucky to get 5, and now we're consistently getting 20+ every day. So that's exciting for our one specialty instructor, Tori, who teaches our swim lesson classes. So we'll look into either bumping it up and adding more, or we've got the capability to add a second time slot on there. So do a 9 o'clock class and do a 10 o'clock class in the morning. So our fitness, or all of our season passes, actually had great numbers this year. You can see just the number of passes that we sold and some of the dollar amounts that those passes equate to. And then we tried to capture the visits that came along with those passes. And so when you're looking at the Arroyo season pass entries, that shows you the total number of people who used a season pass to get in, and if it was for regular rec swim or for night rec swim. So our passes, many different ways people can pay to get in. Season passes, we've got punch passes, so you can buy a 5-visit pass, which we get a lot of families. My cousins, my grandparents are coming into town. We don't want to buy a family pass, we just want to come for a couple of times. They can buy a 5-visit pass or a 10-visit pass. Those are our numbers for the sale there. Interesting enough, we sold 210 passes, 10-visit punch passes. That's 2,100 visits, and we really only captured 804 visits. So there's still lots of visits out there for people to come next year and use their passes next year. Paid entry, we had a total of 16,050 total paid entry, and that's paying credit card at the door, because we didn't accept cash this year, again, at the door. We didn't see a lot of upset people about it. People do want Apple Pay if we can, which Janet is working very hard on for us, and we hope to be up and running with that next year. But we also offered pre-registration again this year, so where someone could go on up to 15 minutes, I believe, after we opened and pay online to come in, and then we could pull their name up and show that they had paid to be there. So we had 2019 total pre-regs for both Arroyo and Manor. Our fun campers came and visited us. There were 4,800 campers that came in to visit us throughout the summer, both at Arroyo and Manor. And then what I am totally excited about, our total pool visits are 35,000. Last year when I reported, they were 28,401 or 841, and then in 2022 they were 25,253. So we did see a significant increase in people visiting our pools this summer, which is awesome. It's fabulous. We were so excited, but it kept our staff on their toes, especially those who were new. So in the second column, our staff profiles. Last year when I reported to you, I reported that, let's see, we had 182 staff on board last year. This year we were up to 102, which is only 10 less than what our highest ever was at 112, which is exciting. 58% of that is our returning staff. So we're still a little bit low. We'd like to be more around 70 or 80% returning staff, but we had 47 of 81 staff return this year, which is awesome. Those staff worked a total of 16,400 hours in 4,458 shifts, so 4,458 shifts. And so when you go to the pool and you're there during rec swim, we have 10 to 12 staff there, depending on the rotations, and those are just lifeguarding staff. So those shifts, those 4,458 shifts, that's all included in those. So we're busy. We've got a lot of moving parts going on between our cashiers, our snack bar, our swim instructors, our lifeguards, our pool managers. All of them are all involved in what it takes to make up our staffing profiles. Fun thing that we did this year, which we had been talking about for a couple of years, is we participated in the 15th annual World's Largest Swimming Lesson. Not when I first started in aquatics, but when I first started here in Davis, I had kind of started looking into it, and the World's Largest Swimming Lesson was offered at 8 a.m. all around the world, which was like 3 o'clock here. It didn't work for our programming to be able to offer it. And so the organization that runs this decided, all right, let's just make it a day. And so whenever your program participates in it, it's considered as being a part of the world's largest swimming lesson. So it's was offered on June 20th this year. This event allows aquatic professionals globally to get in the water and show the importance of swimming lessons and how they reduce drowning by 88%. During the half-hour lesson, our participants this year learned to swim along with safety skills like reach and throw, don't go. So that means find something around you, throw it in, so that you're not going in to get them, which is a really big thing for little ones, because you see something, you're gonna go get it, right? Most of us would jump in if we saw something. The other one is how to put on a life jacket. So it's like, pack your jacket, or bring your jacket. Don't forget to pack it. They've got all these cute little sayings in it. So this year was kind of our novice year to do it. We wanted to see how it was taken and what happened. We had 157 participants, which were our regular swim lesson participants. Next year, I think we'd like to do something a little bit more outside of that and invite the community to a free World's Largest Swimming Lesson Day, maybe a little bit earlier in the day when we didn't have lessons, and really involve a little bit more of the community. I've seen organizations that have involved the firefighters in it, and so I think it's something that we can make really big on a day when we're there, but also include some other aspects of aquatic safety and really the benefit of swimming lessons to it. Our first novice year, we were happy with it. We gave certificates out. We had little bracelets that the organization provided to us, and so it was a great day for everyone. Also participated again this year in the Lifeguard Appreciation Day, which was July 31st. I showed you that last year was our first day. First time participating in that. This year we did invite the community to participate. We did some things on social media about it being National Lifeguard Appreciation Day. We also put up some boards outside the pool and asked patrons as they were coming in to please leave a note for their lifeguards to show them how much they appreciated them. We gave little goodie bags out to the lifeguards, and the lifeguards actually put together their own little video where they showed what a day in the life of a lifeguard was. And so that got put up on social media. So it was fun to see our staff actually take the initiative to put something together that we weren't involved in. So that was pretty cool. And then the last, we got feedback too from customers, mainly on social media about thanking our staff for being there and for making them feel safe. We decided this year, it's being lifeguard is fun, but it's a difficult job. Like, it wears on you to be out there, and it weared on us tremendously with the heat and what we were going to do when we saw organizations around us closing their doors. UC Davis closed their doors until 7 p.m. Their swimming stuff. So we got everything. We got everybody. So that one is going to lead us to this next year to try and figure out some standards across the board of what's healthy and not healthy for our staff. We brought Gatorades, we brought ice cream, we brought slushies, we brought Otter Pops. I mean, we brought everything out to them just to keep them hydrated and show them how much we really did appreciate them also. But I'm working with a couple different agencies like UC Davis, other aquatics agencies. The school district has just enacted some standards, some heat standards, and how they're deciding what's too hot for people to be outside. So we're working on that for next year, so hopefully we'll be able to promote that next year. But something fun we did for the lifeguards this year, which is super silly, but they loved it, is we give everybody every year a lanyard and a whistle. If they're a lifeguard, we give them a lanyard. We've also got some keychains. They're breakaway, so when they're around someone's neck, if it gets pulled, it doesn't strangle them or choke them or anything. So these are standard breakaway lifeguard whistles. And then across the aquatics trend, it has been to earn a bead. So we have beads for let's see, a manager gets a Navy bead. When you're a rookie lifeguard, so your first year lifeguard, you get a red bead. A yellow bead is for a veteran guard, so every year you're a veteran guard. For every year you've guarded, you get a yellow bead. Swim instructors get light blue, snack bar gets orange, cashier gets purple. If you perform a rescue, and so we consider a rescue like you've blown your whistle 3 times, you're jumping in. We have false rescues. 99.999% of the time are our false rescues. You get a white bead for going in and, acting for that. Our brown, anybody want to guess what our brown bead is for? We call it a code brown. This is for when we have to shut the pool down and someone has to go in because they have accidentally used the pool as a toilet. So those are our code brown beads. Green beads, again, are for 2 perfect timesheets. So timesheets are a really big thing when you've got a lot of hours you're putting on and the city has specifications on how they want it. It really helps us out when they're perfect. Patron shout out. So if a patron says something to one of our pool managers or writes in, or we see something, you get a pink bead. Manager shout outs, got caught being good or doing something good or helping someone, you get a different bead. Our coordinator has a bead for if she sees something. And then next year I'm going to introduce, I bought myself special animal-shaped beads that can go on here for the coordinator, for the supervisor shout out, or got caught being good or something, just something that they do that hopefully that'll become a coveted bead. But this is our bead program. We're looking to expand it. It's kind of become a little bit of a trend in the aquatics world. They've got glitter beads and all, I mean, I have to shut the bead carousel occasionally because I get so excited. I'm like, look at this bead, look at that bead. We could do a star, we could do a sun, we could do this, you know, so that was our new kind of employee incentive. And just appreciation this year. So they get them every 2 weeks at our staff meeting. So it's been fun for people to be like, what beads am I gonna get this time? You know, so the picture that is on there, that is Tyler. He is one of our longest standing employees that we have. And I think he's got about 14 beads on there. He's about our 4th year guard. But he's kind of our jack of all. He's a great lifeguard and does most of our rescues if we have them, but Tyler was kind enough to take a picture of himself with his beads for me, so. What kind of questions can I answer for you?
Any questions? No? Okay, I have my couple of things. So first of all, this is awesome. We've never had something like this before, I don't think, right? Okay, and it just really nicely summarizes it. It's very pretty and it's easy to read. So thank you very much for doing this for us because I think a lot of us have these questions and this answers like a lot of it for us. So kudos to you for doing that. So thank you. And then the second thing I did want to bring up is the Apple Pay because having a 12-year-old daughter who wants to go to the pool with her friends and then they all have cash in their hands from their parents and then there's no cash and then it's like, oh, well, I have Apple Pay and then I end up coming up to pay for 10 kids to get in because it doesn't work. So from like a parent perspective, I love that you guys are working on that because I think that that's something that's very helpful and we don't always plan ahead enough to pre-register. So
Understood.
yeah.
And the weather is not always the best either that you can pre-plan, so.
Yeah, but overall, I thought, you know, the staffing was great and our experiences at the pools it was clean and Dave is handling the bees and, you know, we're all good. So, you know, kudos to all of your staff and all of you for a great summer and I know that's a lot of labor of love and so, but thank you for offering all these wonderful programs and aquatic areas and everything else, so. All right. Anyone else? No? All right. We're going to move on to item D. Consider council subcommittee proposed processes to to place tasks and items onto commission agendas.
Before we move on, do we just want to see if there's any public comment on
Yes.
this item?
Sure. Any public comment?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just in case.
Okay. I was going to do it at the end, sorry, from 6A and B. All right. Can we open the topic to the commission for any clarifying questions? We'll take public comment. And the commission, we're asking the commission for any feedback on the process for the staff to take back to the council subcommittee. We don't need a motion, but just asking for feedback. I believe in your packet there is a additional kind of addendum to this. So I will open the floor to commissioners for any comments, questions. Go ahead, Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you. I looked through the material and I was a little bit confused, and maybe these comments will help. At our commission meetings, we generally talk at the end about long-range calendar. So it's not clear to me, I noticed on this agenda, I don't think long-range calendar is on it. So I wasn't sure if we're doing away with that and there's some kind of new process for commissioners to raise suggestions either individually or as a whole. And if there is a new process for that, it's not really clear in here as to how that occurs. And so having that information to me would be helpful. I know that in the past, when we talked about the long-range calendar, we talked to things, topics such as the community needs assessment and master plan, a one-year report on park standards, new park maintenance standards by staff and the contractors to get input as to how well the standards are being met, if they need to be adjusted or what have you. We also talked about budget and the CIP projects for the new year. And again, I'm not sure, if we don't talk about these suggestions or topics during the agenda, I'm not sure what process is used to bring them forward. So I think that would help me understand this a little bit better. And then there was an article recently about this process, and it suggested that a council liaison could perhaps turn down or decide not to bring a commission request forward. And is that the intended process, or is there more of a give and take? Because it seems to me we've only met 3 times this year. And so if there's some discussion amongst the liaison or the council, it seems like by the time that comes back to us, the timeliness may have been lost. So overall, I guess I'm looking for a little bit more clarification as to how this process works. When I read the document, it's just not entirely clear.
Sure, so just kind of reviewing the staff report. So it is asking for the commission's feedback. This is happening during the month of September. All of the commissions were given the staff report and then the flow chart. The version of the flow chart has been updated, so you all are getting the most updated version of the flow chart. But basically, we're looking for any kind of feedback or where you're needing the clarification in the process. I don't know if you have the flow chart handy with you, but track A is anything that's given to the commission from council. That has been in existence always. Track B is if there's any tasks that are coming to you from the department. That too has been in existence. The track C is the one where it's talking about commission-initiated items, and that's where it's just trying to clarify. So in the past, for our commission, what we've usually done is if someone has a topic that they would like to bring to agenda, you discuss it at long range, and then you all vote on it to be able to decide if you want it to go onto agenda. It's not one person saying, I want to talk about this, but it's more of, okay, you come to a consensus, and then you would say, okay, when would we talk about this? We can put it on the agenda, and that's how we kind of put things down. As you can see in track C, it says that the concept is approved at the regular meeting, which is the same process that we've always done. And then it's reviewed by staff, and it has their core council liaisons to the council subcommittee group. And so basically, that's kind of the behind-the-scenes process, right? So you all say, we want to talk about park maintenance standards. And then we come back as staff and we say, okay, what do we need to do to be able to put that together? When will we talk about it? It was discussed at the commission meeting that they want to be able to discuss it. We tentatively maybe said, let's talk about it in November. And we come back and say, okay, well, like, what else do we have going on at that time? And it's like, oh my goodness, well, maybe some big project is happening in November and we won't be able to kind of get all of the materials together. So we might come back to the chair and say, hey, we know that this is a topic that I wanted to go onto the agenda. We have these other activities that are happening. Like, for instance, we said, hey, commission, summertime is a really busy time for us to put together any kind of topics and meetings. That's our biggest program time. Can we go ahead and postpone, a meeting in July and come back together in September and have more of a summary recap so we can just focus our energies on our programming. And so that's where we might come back and say, okay, can we move this? Or maybe a topic is related back to budget stuff. Well, now we've just had an update to our scope and function that was in your consent packet. And so now budget isn't really a part of our commission anymore. Budget goes with budget commission. And so we can talk about programs and activities, we can talk about the park projects and policies, but we're not really, this commission isn't really the purview for budgets. So how do we talk about programming? If there's a budgeting question, how do we bring it back to more programming? So it might be something where you all want to talk about the PCS budget, but that's not really in our purview and our function anymore. And so how do we kind of tailor? So then I would say like, that's not recommended, but then how do we bring it over to this right-hand column and say, okay, what is it about budget that we're wanting to know? We're wanting to know how many people are in subsidy, how many program spaces are we creating for people who need subsidy in our community, how are we addressing that need? So how do we tailor that interest and topic so it fits within our purview? So that's where I would see kind of go into that right-hand column of, if you just want to talk about budget, that's going to get kicked back to be like, no, that's not our department, that's our commission's lane to be in, that's the budget commission. So how do we bring it back to what our 4 functions are and get our topic to fit within that, and then get it so that way we can go ahead and have that be an ongoing topic, or a topic that we would put onto the agenda and pass forward to say, okay, we want to talk about it, we want to discuss it, and we want to pass it forward to council. Now, if you all are in agreement and say, we want to talk about this, and you are all in agreement, you voted on it, you can still do that. We can still, you guys can all just vote on it and say, staff, this is what we are saying as a commission. And we can put that forward and still send it forward to council to say this is what they want to work on. Then it's just for council to decide whether or not they say yes or no. So that's how this flow, that's how I have been told how this flow chart is supposed to be interpreted, and it's not really that different, I think, from how we've been operating on business so much. But this kind of really came out of needing to create a flow chart so all commissions are operating similarly and consistent. And what they found from talking to different commissions, when the subcommittee was meeting with different commissioners or chairs, is that each commission might have worked a little bit different and there was some inconsistencies. And so really saying from the subcommittee side, this is something important that we have for all commissions to follow, so everyone knows kind of what the process is, and it's clear and transparent for everyone to say, okay, if council wants to put something on it, this is how it works. If staff want to put something on our department, this is how it works. If commission wants to do it, then this is how it works.
So one question I have on this as a follow-up is, typically when we talked about future agenda items, it often garnered response and input from all the commissioners, but we never formally voted on future agenda items. So are you looking for a formal vote as when we talk about future agenda items? Because that hasn't occurred in the past.
There have been times where there have been votes on it to be added onto the agenda. Otherwise, it fits directly in with our scope and function, so then it's something that we would be talking about, or it would be something in line with what the department would be bringing forward. So I think this would be something more of, like, I don't know, I can't think of a good example. I'm trying to think of like, when we're at maybe like the senior commission and someone wanting to talk about a housing plan. And again, housing is, from the senior commission's perspective, is how is it impacting seniors, but the housing discussion was discussed at the planning commission. And so I think it was more of who's the right group that should be talking about it, and what is the scope and function of the commission. And so maybe it's not that this is the right spot for that discussion, and that the discussion actually lives in a different commission. And so that's kind of where the arrows break down in the C section, is really just trying to make sure, is this the right place to be discussing it? Does it align with the scope and the function? Is there already an existing council subcommittee that's talking about this? Because if that's the case, then we don't need to be talking about it here, because there's already a council subcommittee. Does it align with the council goals? Is it something that aligns with what the department is trying to achieve? And so kind of looking at all of those things, and if you can say yes, it does, then we keep proceeding with like, okay, then it's in line, check, 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 it goes ahead and we can, you know, put it on the agenda. But if there's like, it deviates from that, then we just have to say, okay, if it does, then can we redo it? And so I think it would be something more, if you all decided we want to have this discussion and it goes on to the agenda, and then it comes back around to the next month and we say, hey, actually we checked in with the city clerk's office or a subcommittee, and they actually have a subcommittee group that's going to be working on this. So I know you wanted to talk about it, but there's actually a different group who's going to be talking about it. That's where it would be taken off of our agenda and moved over to something else. Otherwise, we just kind of re-workshop it at another meeting and then figure out how we can get it to be in something of discussion. So I don't think it would delay us more than like coming back to another meeting.
Can the follow-up happen prior to the agenda then, so that, you know what I mean, like the kind of circular of like us proposing something and then it goes back in to find out some other group is working on it, so then that way you find that out like the week after instead of waiting until the next agenda. You know what I mean, like follow via email or whatever instead.
Yeah, I can check in with the clerk's office to see.
I just think that maybe
What
that
kind of-
poses anything that could potentially be timely, right?
Right, and also would give the commissioners an opportunity to discuss how to modify it.
Sure.
So, yes.
Yeah, we just have to make sure that we're not discussing it all at the same time without a public.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Commissioner Siegel, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I have to be honest, I was, since this is the second year that I asked the same question, I guess I'm going to make a motion. I don't know how to do this other than make a motion that part of the summer program review, both for the aquatics as well as the non-aquatics program, that there is a detailed discussion of wait times. I'm going to make a motion because I asked that question a year ago, and unless people are a little sharper than I am, which is possible, I couldn't quite decipher the response to that question again this year. So I'm going to make a motion with the chair's approval that in the future, and as well as this year, that we have a more detailed discussion of wait times, which would include wait times for individual programs as well as numbers of unique individuals who are not accommodated. I think it's a terrific program, but if there are children in Davis who are not able to get into the summer program, that concerns me. So I'm going to make a motion that we have a more is that
Can I ask you to hold your motion until item 7 when we're talking about upcoming meeting dates and agenda
okay?
items?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
So if I would, I'd also like to, again, last year, and we had a lengthy discussion, but I'm not sure. It appeared the notion appeared to disappear into the ether. That we talked about us reaching out to our constituency, whether it's pickleball or whether it's Team Davis, and trying to figure out what we could do to accommodate the community. Very informal. We were told at the time that the council was going to be formulating directions for how to do that. That was probably, I can't remember now, a year ago maybe. We haven't received any instructions how to reach out to the community to do a needs assessment. I believe as Commissioner Ono mentioned when he was reading the various items, that was something that we discussed last year, and I'm frankly, I think it's something we should do, let's put it that way. I would be happy to go to my next door neighbor and ask, well, are we accommodating the needs of Special Olympics or Team Davis? What can we do more to, have that? And then the third thing that I'm going to, again, ask this year, and I would like it to be a part of the standing agenda, is how we are doing in terms of transferring to battery-operated equipment in our department, in the parks, basically, because we keep discussing that, and of course, as we mentioned, there were 19 days last year of temperatures over 100, recognizing that Davis, what happens in Davis will be a small pittance in terms of that, but nonetheless, I think we should be, as we've discussed in the past, setting an example, and I'm not sure if we're making progress. Maybe we're making terrific progress, and I'm just unaware of it.
So
But
these are not
items-
agendized, these are not agendized items. These are not agendized items that you're wanting to bring up right now.
These are not well, they should be, I mean,
Okay,
because.
that'll be
if
in
I
item
recall-
7.
excuse me, if I
Right
recall
now, we
last
need to go
year-
back to just
Yeah,
making
if I recall
recommendations
last
or
year,
feedback for
they
this
were
item.
On a list of long-term things that we needed to look into. I don't know how to make something an agenda,
Let's
but I really.
keep on this topic, and then I'm happy to circle back to you on item
Okay.
7 for all of your
Very
items,
good.
and then take a note of them, okay?
Thank you.
All right,
Madam Chair?
yes.
Okay, as far as feedback on the proposal on the agendizing items, I guess the one concern I would have is that there be some differentiation between items that would require staff input and items where the commission is just expressing an opinion. To take your example of a budget item, where the budget is in another commission, but say the council, God forbid, would decide to zero out funding for the skate park. And I want to say, I think this commission should send a letter to the council expressing our disappointment in that decision and urging them to reconsider. Now, that's just something the commission can express its opinion on, and it shouldn't be something that has to be vetted as to whether it's permissible to bring it back to the commission for an agenda item. So I guess.
So that
my
process
suggestion-
is in here. That is a process. It could be that you all still agree and want to go forward and still send something to council. That is an option. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so to use my hypothetical then, if that were to happen and I were to say, I would like this to put on next month's agenda, that we, and we could even appoint a committee to draft a letter. And if we all said, yes, we want to do that, then that would happen.
So just for clarification, this is not necessarily just putting onto our agenda. This is for putting an agenda item forward for council.
Okay,
So
well, we can't put anything on the council.
you can make a recommendation for something to go to council.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but I don't know how that gets transmitted exactly, whether there's just I don't think it would have to go on the council agenda, it would just be a council communication.
From the commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I think is everybody okay with questions for right now? Because I do know that we have a public comment, and I'd like to open to public comment first, and then we can finish up our discussion item and make a recommendation, if that's okay with everybody. So I'd like to open public comment. And I understand that you also probably know the rules here, so you have 3 minutes. Please state your
Absolutely.
name and for
Absolutely.
the record. and-
My name for the record is
Thank
Dan
you.
Carson, former city council member who appointed most of you here, and also a former commissioner and chair of the Finance Commission at one time. Elaine Roberts, Musser, and I sent you a communication a couple of weeks ago. I can tell you this proposal continues to morph. This is the 3rd version, and honestly, with every commission discussion, it continues to morph in its description by staff. And I can tell you it has not erased the concerns we voiced to you. First, we think that this undermines the independence of this commission. The folks who would be able to agendize items for your commission and others would be staff, the council, and the only party that couldn't agendize things without unfettered access to do so would be you. It sets up a process for review by 1 or maybe 2 council members. It would be done in secrecy with undoubtedly, depending on the subject matter, all sorts of behind-the-scenes lobbying. And Elaine Roberts Musser, who is an attorney, I am not, is convinced that putting a single council member or 2, less than the quorum of the council, in the decision-making authority to allow something to move forward or to send it sideways is a violation of the Brown Act. It's a real concern. You, under the current commission handbook, which is approved by the city council in a resolution. Gives you straight access to agendize whatever you want and to bring those items without review by any other party, if you so choose, to the city council, whether it's a resolution in support of a particular park project or whatever it is. The scope in this plan is not limited, for example, to things involving city staff and dollars. It's anything that they so choose. And they can sideline it for any reason, on any grounds whatsoever. Now, you do have a rule that says you have to work on the stuff within your charter. That makes complete sense. But this is intruding far beyond that, with any criteria a particular council member might choose to have. The council appoints you, it sets your charter. You can have a council liaison who can chime in any discussion here if they have concerns about the direction you're going on something. And that should be enough to control what you do. We think a better thing to do is to work, as we did in the past, to make sure that your work plan ideas are integrated into the city council's official goals. And the other thing, and I'll end on this point, the other thing that we worked very hard to do was to have the commission sit in a workshop with the council, a different commission each month, to go over those work plans, get on the same page. We think that's a much better and less intrusive way to do this. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to offer my view.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, no? All right, we're gonna close public comment and open for discussion amongst the commissioners. And perhaps we can come up with some sort of recommendations as well to send back.
Madam Chair, do we actually need to make a recommendation? I thought we were
No,
just giving
you-
input that you were
Yep.
not jotting down.
There's no motion or action needed, but if you do want to make some sort of statement or provide feedback, now is the time.
So Dan Carson is correct. This flow chart has changed over the month as they've gone through commissions and received feedback, and they're trying to clarify it and see if they're getting to kind of the point of what the other commissions. I know this as far as the version that I worked on or presented last week at the Senior Citizen Commission is different from this version that you all are getting in the sense of kind of the review process. So they're taking the feedback from all of the commissions and trying to streamline it to have it make sense and be a document that is helpful for commissioners as well as staff. So if something on here doesn't make sense and needs clarification, this is your opportunity to be able to tell us so that way we can take it forward to the committee or subcommittee.
Great. Commissioners, anyone?
Well, if I may, I would just, expand, what Mr. Carson just said kind of dovetails with my initial concerns. It does seem, at least the way it's worded, it does seem like it's intended to inhibit commission participation and set up additional obstacles, procedural obstacles. And I think care should be taken to whether it's you tweak it in some way so that it makes clear what you just assured us, Tamika, was that there's still a clear process where the commission, by majority vote, can move things forward without having to get a stamp of approval from the council or staff. So I guess that would, I don't have any offhand suggestions on how to phrase that or how to structure it, but the impression one gets from reading that flow chart and reading the narrative is that this is intended to tie our hands.
Okay, so just making sure that I can capture this in a way to take it back over. So in reviewing of section or track C, do you have the flow chart with you?
I've got it, I've read it before I came, but okay, commission initiated request, okay. Concept approved at a regular meeting, okay.
Okay.
And now, it's going to, before it can, the way I read this flow chart is before step 2 can happen, it's subject to a review by the council liaison individually or a council subcommittee before it can move on to another step. So before it can go from step 1 to step,
So in the first box,
There's
you
an
all
option
will
for
be
that.
approving the concept to discuss. Then it goes to staff, council liaison, subcommittee, other departments to see if this topic is being discussed anywhere else or if this is the right location for the topic. So are you
well,
suggesting?
no, that part I get. If- I mean,
Okay, so that,
if it involves having to, if it involves anything other than the commission expressing its opinion, then I can understand some intermediary review.
okay,
But if the commission just wants to state its opinion on a matter of public interest that's within the purview of this commission, then it ought to be able to do so without an intermediary step.
okay. So then you're moving down to if it's not recommended?
I'm going to move, I would move from concept approved at a regular meeting, commission, majority of commission approves the concept,
Okay.
bring the arrow straight down to send the city council as informational. Why do we need those middle steps?
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, are you,
I'm done.
read it, okay. Commissioner, go ahead.
I tend to agree with Tim. If the concept is approved at a regular meeting, I would expect that it would be within the purview of what the commission is charged with. Plus, staff would tell us if we were out of scope, and so therefore, I would hope the commission then would say, well, maybe that's not within our four charge areas, and therefore we need to either modify the concept or drop it. So I kind of support Tim's idea that if the concept is well thought out and receives at the time it's proposed, that staff says it's appropriate within our scope, then I'm not sure why it needs the additional step.
So can I play devil's advocate with you?
Sure.
So let's say at this meeting, we think it meets in with our scope, but then I go back as a staff liaison to meet with the clerk's office and just kind of recap what the meeting is, or she's reviewed our video and says, hey, I saw that you were talking about topic A. We actually have that being discussed over in the planning commission. So then, if that's where it's going to live, then maybe that's where it doesn't come back here, right? Because if they've already taken it maybe further already, or maybe discussion, just as an example, right? So if that was the case, then would you prefer to still have it be a conversation? Or would you still like to have the option, I guess, to be able to discuss it here, even if the train is already moving forward in on a different track for either a different commission or a subcommittee?
Well, there could be value in the sense that if the commission and commissioners thought the question or agenda item fit within our scope, to have the ability to have that on the agenda, provide additional feedback. So it might go to other commissions for input, but it seems like if in fact city staff during the concept discussion says, yes, that's within the scope of the commission, commissioners are interested in the topic, I think that's useful to have that on a future agenda. So it's hard to think about the hypotheticals. Because,
Absolutely.
uh,
Right, I just don't want us to recommend, or, to take for and say a certain thing should be cut out without thinking of other options of like, well, what does that mean? Like, for me, I'm thinking if someone else is already talking about it and taking it forward, then I wouldn't want our time here to be wasted to talk about something that we think that we could still address if it's already like 2 steps ahead in a different venue, right?
Well, I agree. I'm thinking that if in fact the concept is deemed within our scope and a high interest area of members of the commission, and staff says, well, it is appropriate even though they learn it's discussed at another commission, I think it's worthwhile to have it on the agenda. So maybe there's some adjustment in the process.
So if I'm looking at the flow chart, I've just kind of numbered them and see like 1, 2, 3, 4. Tim and Bob, are you thinking like cutting out this section of the flow chart?
The number 2?
I thought it was more of like these 2 boxes of where it splits.
Yeah.
So
I guess so, yes.
Commission talks about it, it's reviewed by staff to see if it's within scope and make sure it's not conflicting with any kind of subcommittee group. And then if not, then it would just keep proceeding on as agenda and going to council.
Yes.
Would that be your feedback?
Yes.
Other commissioners?
I guess the only thing I would have on that, Bob, is if somebody else is talking about it, we should know somebody else is talking about it. I mean,
And we have a different.
we might have,
policy and-
because of the commission,
and-
our charter.
And our lane is how it relates to the recreational and needs of the people. David, somebody else got a different lane, so we could, why should we not be able to weigh in on that, our opinion on that aspect of it? Even if the planning commission, or the tree commission, or whatever is considering the same proposal.
Commissioner Siegel, go ahead.
I think, I'm not sure if I'm addressing this question directly, but the fact that we've only met a few times in the last year would at least suggest to me that our time is not so precious that we can't discuss things that other commissions are also discussing. And of course, there may be overlap, right? So it seems like a highly theoretical discussion when in fact half the meetings are canceled, perhaps because there aren't enough agenda items. So I'm happy, I agreed to be here, come here once a month, and I'm happy to come here. Even if we do discuss something, if we have something to contribute that is not clearly under our purview, if we have something to add to the discussion. So I think, it seems like we're, in my mind, looking for a problem in need of a solution, because I don't think we have a shortage of time or issues, surplus of issues to discuss. We're not here half the time, because I presume that means that there aren't things that staff thinks that we need to talk about.
Any other feedback? No? Okay, I have a couple things myself. So while I can appreciate the thought to try to streamline the process to kind of just make things more even across all of the commissions, I do think that that we do have some valid points here in terms of just our voices. I think we're all here for a specific reason, right? We have an investment in parks and recreation for the community, and I think we all represent some sort of portion of that. And I think that if there is a panel of groups coming from a different sort of background with some input that we would like to see go to the commission, it is a little bit of a knock for us to have some sort of recommendation and that we think amongst all of us that is important enough to hear from the council to hear it. It would be good not to have that kicked back to you for whatever reason. And I do also appreciate that other commissions are working on things too, but I do think that our perspective and our kind of positioning on things may be very different than a budget commission or, you know, other commissions, and they're charged with different things. So while I think it's fine, I do think that there has to be some sort of feedback loop so we do know what's going on. And then also be given an opportunity to provide some feedback that can be agendized and you know, the public can have an opportunity to comment as well. So that would be, you know, some of my feedback for that. And I do think that, you know, we do provide some sort of different expertise in terms of what this looks like. And if we weren't important or we weren't charged with certain things, none of us would be here. So I think, you know, just in terms of, it doesn't necessarily have to be a motion or an action or a recommendation. It's just, you know, a discussion amongst people who are representing parts of the community. So I do encourage that to go back to the council and you know, however they can modify the chart to at least be open to feedback and hearing discussion items, I think is critical. You know, and we obviously value all of your staff time as well and your guys' opinions, and you're in the know. This is your thing every day, right? We just get to come up here and once a month or ish, you know, to provide to provide the feedback. So I will kind of share some of the sentiment, and while I do really appreciate them trying to streamline things at the same time. So perhaps we can kind of meld the two opportunities to be able to be a little bit more open about feedback opportunities. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and move to item 7. And this is for the future agenda items as well as upcoming meeting dates. So I think this will be the opportunity for Commissioner Siegel. I would like to give you your opportunity here to suggest some future agenda items, and others, Samita, thank you for waiting till item 7 here.
So I do apologize first. I did not include our typical long-range calendar into the packet. I noticed that just, I think, today when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this was not included in the packet. So we do have the Walnut Court Sports Court ribbon cutting that will be happening sometime in October. 22nd? Late October. But no pressing topics coming down from council or, you know, this group at this point. In November, we do have the task from the council subcommittee to do the annual Golden Heart Award representative. That is when we are also planning to talk about landscape maintenance standards review and also to bring forward a department banner policy to you all.
Oh, what?
Banner policy, like posting banners in our parks and green spaces.
That's going to be when, I'm sorry?
November's meeting.
November's meeting,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So, interesting, by the way. May I comment on that a little bit? I think there may be some banners prior to that in our parks. There already are some.
Oh, there are banners. We are just trying to formalize and approve a policy that will give us some guidance on, or give us guidance on on how banners and which banners and in which areas banners can be posted.
And who can post them?
And who can post them. Yeah, yes. Exactly.
But
If I may make one comment on the park maintenance standards, I would propose to move that to July. And the reasoning would be we could get, as a commission, input from the city as to how well the maintenance standards have been found possible to implement. But also, I'd like to hear from the contractor and to hear from the contractor that's doing the park maintenance for a wide variety of park properties and open spaces to see what their input would be as to where they've had success and challenges in meeting those standards. And I think that would be something to be on the formal agenda in the July timeframe, because that would be about 1 year since the standards have been implemented, 1 year for the contractor to gain experience. And then the contractor could also tell us about their success in electrification, because that was one of the things that was asked for in the bids, about how they're going to meet some of those requirements. And I think there are some commission members that are very much interested in that.
Go ahead.
So,
Commissioner Siegel.
thank you. So, again, I don't know exactly procedurally how to best do this. But again, I am concerned that year in and year out, we get these great reports about all these kids, about their involvement, and every year now, for at least 2 or 3 years, I ask the question about people on waiting lists, and the response that I got today was basically, well, we haven't collected that data. And it seems to me that that's fairly basic data that we would want. The program seems like a terrific program, but if there are hundreds of children in Davis who are not able to get into the programs that they want, we should look at that. Maybe there's no, in past years, we got more of an explanation of how this was just a perfect program the way it was. And we really couldn't expand it because people riding bikes and, so on and so forth. But I really do think we should look at it. Isn't that something that is in our purview? We're getting this lengthy report about how many beads people have. Nothing wrong with that. Particularly the brown beads seem intriguing to me. I'm not a gastroenterologist, but anyway, I just really, so how do we formalize that? How do I go from do I have to make a motion that as part of these reports every year, and then we have a report in October about how many kids were on the waiting list? Do I have to make a motion? Maybe I should just make a motion that
Can I maybe clarify?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to make a motion?
Oh, no, absolutely, absolutely. But I just wanted to say, maybe there's a way of clarifying this so that way it can be an agendized topic instead of it just being a bullet pointed report out number. But maybe what it is that you're talking about is the unmet needs of our current programming. And maybe that's the agendized kind of item that we could bring forward to say.
Maybe agendizing is not quite the way to do it, because I feel like we've done that in the past and nothing seems to happen. Maybe I have to make a formal motion that as part of these summer program reports in the future, there is as part of the report, we're told about wait times and an analysis of how to satisfy the wait times. Does anyone want to second that? I mean, I feel like.
Can I just comment a couple
Please.
things, and then
Yes.
we'll revisit
We'll
that?
second and then discussion, but that's fine.
Sure, I just want to clarify the motion first,
Okay, thank you.
so that's why.
Thank you.
I think, to your point, it sounds like the staff can pull the reports of people on the wait list, correct? So it sounds like that can be something that's done. If this is something that is important to you, which it sounds like it is.
Well, yes, it is. I think it would be important to all of us,
Sure.
kids or friends with kids.
But what I would propose is that you make a motion to have some agendized item on the next month's meeting,
Okay.
so then the staff can go back, and this next month, they can properly prepare some sort of reports to talk about unmet needs, what the wait list looks like, specifically, if there's unique individuals that didn't get any programming, or unique individuals that didn't get any programming across all opportunities, or specific programming as it relates to just Camp Huda, or those programs that are seen to be heavily impacted. So perhaps your motion can include something specific like that to give them some metrics that you would like to see for next month.
Okay.
And then going forward, after we see and evaluate what happens next month, we can open it up to propose what the
summer reports look like going forward, so we can include those numbers.
So you've articulated that very well.
Okay.
So I would be happy to make that motion. You've done a good job, thank you.
What she said.
Madam Chair. Because, I mean, I think the point should be fairly clear.
Yeah.
We want to know what the wait lists look like, and we want to know if there's any action to satisfy the children who are not able to get into programs. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's,
Well, I think you're asking for two different things. You're wanting to know data numbers,
that was.
and then you're wanting
yes.
to know how the unmet needs are being addressed. And I see that as two separate things.
Well,
And so
but related.
if we're wanting to have it as a discussion item, so that way the commission can have the idea of what are the unmet needs, what are the numbers, and have it be a discussion? Or do you want it just to be a report out of, we can tell you X number of people are on the waiting list?
No, I want to, of course, you know, right? I mean, of course I want to know what are the thoughts about satisfying the unmet needs. Just numbers are, you know, would be interesting. And then we would say, well, there seems to be a lot of unmet needs. So what are the plans to satisfy those unmet needs?
So I think that the specific metrics though are, one is like the unique number of individuals that did not get into any programming, for one. And then the second one is perhaps some of the select programs that are heavily impacted, to see if there are unique individuals within those impacted programs that did not get into that specific program.
Yeah, we certainly had a lot of detail on various things, including all the analyses and the aquatic data and so on. I think perhaps we should spend a similar amount of time analyzing what we're talking about. And you guys are the experts, I recognize that. You know what I'm talking about. So-
Right, I just want to make sure that we can provide information that's going to be valuable, right? And if you're wanting to be able to discuss like the unmet needs, to determine like what, as the commission, what can you do to help the city or the department to offer either additional programming, or how can you as the commission help to advocate for the need for additional facilities to be able to create spaces for additional programs, right? I don't want to just give you numbers and be like, okay, well,
No.
these are what our
Of course
numbers
we're
are. We
interested
can't
in
serve them because
the
we can't
plans to
increase
satisfy the
capacity because we
needs
don't have
and
locations.
recognizing that we are not the budget commission, so now we probably can't say anything about the resources needed to do this, but we might make a recommendation. Because I'm not, again, I know campers pay to be in programs, right?
Unless they receive a subsidy.
I mean, unless they receive a scholarship or something, yes, I get that. So, you know, maybe some sort of financial analysis. If we have to increase it, is it covered by the fees? Because of course there's a basic expenses, and then there's economies of scale and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, we're not, right? You don't have to hire certain supervisor administrators, so expanding programs, I would guess, would be more efficient than establishing new ones or something, if you get my point. So a financial analysis of what is required,
Right, point noted, okay.
okay?
Okay,
Yes.
so
Thank you.
do you have something to say before we entertain the motion?
Just one
Okay.
comment. I think this is all very helpful. I would hate to see the commission try to micromanage staff. So in terms of, when you look at the report and what might be done, some alternatives might be useful for staff to suggest as to when there's huge areas of unmet needs. Maybe provide the commission with some alternatives as to what you think would possibly address that, so then we can knowledgeably provide some guidance in those alternatives. Because I don't think, at least from my perspective, if you told me there was unmet needs in one program area, that I'm not going to be able to give you a solution, that I would look to what are some alternatives that I can give guidance. So,
I do think that it does sound like, based on what Ann and Christina were talking about though, is a lot of it have limitations because of space or resources or staffing, right? Like, so I think we're gonna run into that quite a bit. And that's okay. I think
at some point you cap out on capacity, right? But let's also be creative on looking at opportunities or perhaps, expanding where we can, or perhaps people on the commission may have other opportunities too. So let's go ahead and entertain your motion. Commissioner Siegel, would anybody like to second it?
Can you restate, you stated it so well the first time. Can you restate it?
Well, okay, the motion is.
No, I was asking the chair to restate.
Okay.
She's standing so much better.
Basically, that, let's think of it as a research question, that we explore the unmet needs of Davis children in the summer programs. And that staff should understand that that's a broad question and that we rely on their talent to then define the question, perhaps produce some data that tells us.
Give us a report.
Yeah.
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 Give us a report.
Or I was being asked a lot
Unmet
of,
needs.
Tim, I was being asked a lot of very specific questions. And I tried to state it broadly, but I'm being told that by staff that I need to be more precise. So would you prefer that it's just a general explore unmet needs in the summer programs?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
And I think we specified the reports that we needed already.
I'll second the motion.
Great. All in favor? Aye.
But you have discussion first.
Oh, would you like to have more discussion?
I was waiting for the motion to get there.
Okay.
So for the discussion part of it, because I just wanted to give my feedback on it, I love data. I live for data. That's what I do all the time. The one thing that Ann said that I thought was very important is that she said that people may be on 3 different waiting lists, and they may not get into this one, but they may get into that one. I think that's really kind of the heart of as you go to, that our child's needs being met, because maybe they're not getting into program 1 or 2, but they're getting into program 3. So do we really have an issue of not meeting children's needs? We might not get the first one, but we can get the second or third one. And I think that is important to look at the data.
But is that going to be captured in the report that we asked by having the list of kids that have not been able to be in any program, unique kids that have not been in any program, or the second report, which would be the major impacted programs like Camp Kuda, the unique report of individuals that did not get into Camp Kuda all summer?
So I think there's going to be programs where you go on, and I haven't done this in years, my wife always did it. You have to be on there within 10 seconds of being on the program.
It's still that way.
It
Yeah.
is. I mean,
Let's be serious. That hasn't changed since I was a kid 30 years ago,
It is.
so, it's okay.
Okay, so.
Now you can just do it online.
Yeah.
Before you had to wait in line.
Yes,
Yeah.
my mom would stand out front
Yeah.
here to get
Yes.
me into Camp
So-
Kuda. Okay.
But I think we need, to me, the more important question is, are the children able to get into some program to satisfy their needs throughout the year?
So I have to say, the assumption there is that maybe it's realistic that kids should only be in one program. So these programs, as I recall from my own grandchildren, they're 1 or 2 weeks long, right?
One, usually
week.
one, with the
Okay,
exception
so
of swim,
the
right?
notion is that
Just 2.
if you get into one program out of a, let's say, 10-week summer, that's great. See, because they got into some program. I'm not sure, we could discuss it, and I think we need to maybe be realistic, but is that what we're saying? If you get into one one-week program for the summer, and you don't get into, other programs, that's satisfactory. I'll just leave that as.
I also think that is a very broad statement, given the circumstances of all of the families have extremely different needs, right? There are families that need these programs because they work, both parents work, or the single parent works and they have to have programming for their kids that are not sitting at home for the whole summer, right? But there are also individuals who maybe have a parent that doesn't work or have a flexible schedule or whatever, and they are going to camp because it's fun to go to camp, right? So I think that that question may not be able to be answered amongst this sort of situation because we can't poll every single family and say, were your needs met? I mean, perhaps
We
that's
don't
a
know-
survey.
We don't know the needs of a family.
Right.
We just see that you're on the list, the waiting list. And I don't know if, once someone is pulled off of the list, they're considered enrolled. So I won't know if they were on the list and got enrolled. I don't know if we'll have history for that to show. If my child was on the wait list and they were put into the camp, then they're considered enrolled. And so then the people who are still on the wait list are the people on the wait list.
Right.
So we're going to, I don't know if we'll have to check and see if we can pull that kind of data to see like, were you from the waiting list and now you became an enrollee? I don't know if our system captures that.
Do the best you can, obviously.
And we have lots of other programs in town too, which I know we've talked about last year also. And so
Okay. Are we good with discussion now? Are we sure? Anyone? Okay. So do we have a vote of ayes, please? All in favor, aye? Okay. 6 ayes, no nays. We're moving on. All right. Any other agenda items for discussion? Okay. Commissioner Murillo, go ahead.
So, I know when I first came to this commission, it really is important to me, was the grand openings of these parks, that we put a ton of money into these shade structures, whatever it is. We need to have a time to either, I don't know if having a grand opening for a side park is the best way to do it. But I think either all of us come out and say, hey, we're gonna go out and meet at 3 o'clock, so you're not here at 8 o'clock at night to go out and look at something, or say, once a month, we set up to go and look at this. We passed it, we said, hey, let's go out and do this. Go out and look at it, because I think we can go out and look at it in our own time, but I think if all of us go out together and say, hey, let's go to, we had grand openings for the shade structure, or the bathroom, whatever it may be, let's go and take an hour and drive for these 2 or 3 different things to look at. That's important because we put a lot of time, they put a lot of energy into passing these to be able to look at them.
Can you clarify your recommendation?
I would like to put on the agenda, we find time to go out and look at projects that are completed and go out as a group of commissioners to look at these. Once a
Okay, and
month,
something-
once every other month.
And something like that has to be agendized because we're
It has to
all,
be noticed.
it has to be noticed.
that would be a special meeting, like how we did when we went out to Arroyo, we went
Yes.
to a couple different locations in Westwood Park. So we could say, for instance, October, do a special meeting in which we will go out to Arroyo, Shade Structure, Slide Hill, and I don't know, whatever else would be open by then. Not yet. Almost.
And Tamika, that would be not part of our third Wednesday, correct? It would be a separate day and time.
It could still be on our Wednesday, but it would need to be earlier because,
Sure,
so
it's
it
gonna be
would
dark.
be in the daylight.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be in the parks at night.
But we have Dave. All right. Okay.
Was that clear enough?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to make sure that I understood your request.
I just want to celebrate the good stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Pickleball courts.
Do we need to make a motion for that to go onto agenda or to create a special meeting for that?
So I would just need to make sure that we would have a quorum, because it would be a special meeting, and you all would just need to vote. You would need to make a motion and to vote to change a meeting time. So if you wanted to say for the October, I think it's, hopefully my date is right, October 16th?
Yeah.
No, October,
It's
yes.
October 16th.
October 16th. So if you'd like to try to make a motion to change the time, like maybe, I don't know, whatever time, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I guess it might be getting dark at 5 o'clock in October.
We don't go. until
Daylight
daylight
savings, not
savings
till the
doesn't
first
go
weekend in November.
in
Okay.
November, so I think 4 o'clock is
So- You all can vote on that to change the time. It would be a special meeting. We meet out at whatever location has the open the new open locations. And so you could do that today.
And then what, we end up here for the rest of the meeting?
No, it would just be an
do-
on-site, it would be an off-site meeting location.
Do we have other agenda items for October that we need to discuss?
Not at this time.
Unless, but we do now.
Yes, if we have that, or we push that to November.
Well, I think that's fine, because we're talking about next summer, so, right, in terms of the needs assessment for the summer
Madam Chair?
programs.
Yes.
May I make a suggestion? No. So, a subcommittee, how many people can we have on a subcommittee?
3,
And so you don't have to agendize it, you can just have a subcommittee meeting.
correct.
So, I would suggest, and I think it'd be more practical, that we appoint a subcommittee of 3 commissioners to do this tour. And then maybe earlier in the day, and come back and have our regular meeting. And those 3 commissioners could then expound on what they've seen and brief the rest of us. And it might just be more practical.
I can see the practicality of that, but I also look at it, if we have nothing in October, why aren't we spending time as a commission, because we're the Parks Commission, to all go out there and look at the work that the staff has done and celebrate the parks that we're improving on.
Well, I think we may have something in October, because maybe we should wait till the end of this part of the meeting to see if we do or we don't, because, I mean, the next item, you know what I'm going to bring up, which is that I think we should do a needs assessment of different community groups. And I don't know if people are, I mean, we could discuss it, and maybe people don't think it's a good idea, but, you know, we discussed it last year. We were told we were going to get guidance from the city council about how to set it up and how to do it. I don't think we have gotten any, but regardless, I'm not sure that we need guidance for people to, let's say, meet with Scott Adler about pickleball, ask him what he needs, whether we ultimately agree or we have the resources to do it remains to be seen. I actually talked to him about this issue a week or 2 ago, because we happen to be friends, and you know, he was talking about pickleball courts in Woodland and so on, and why our pickleball courts are not ideal. I mean, you know. So I think there are groups like that, many groups like that, right? That we should be asking them how we could serve them better. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? I thought.
You're referring to like co-sponsored groups that are renting facilities, or are you talking about community members that are using city facilities?
The latter. So again, for example, Team Davis uses city facilities.
Team Davis might be a co-sponsored group if they're renting facilities.
Okay, maybe they're a co-sponsored group, but
I could be wrong.
I don't know if they are or they aren't. But,
So we are in the process of our community needs assessment master plan. And there was a community outreach and community needs assessment that was a part of this project.
So should that be on the agenda then, to bring back?
Absolutely, it will when we're getting to the process. If you remember, we had this as an 18-month process, and so we're still in it. They're getting ready to do the preliminary draft document, and so when that is ready to be presented to the commission, then we will be bringing it to the commission.
who's the we? Staff, city council, I'm not sure I saw that.
It's a consultant. Dudek was a selected consultant.
Okay, so
So it will be an item that staff would bring forward when it's ready to be presented to the commission.
when might that be?
I believe they have estimated an admin draft, which would come to commission in the next few months, over the next few months.
Well, I mean, again, you know, just speaking for myself, I don't find that satisfactory. I'm wondering, I mean, what I have in mind is, you know, we could get together a series of questions, some sort of instrument to meet with key people in the community and figure out what we're doing right or what we're doing wrong and what we could do in addition to serve their needs. This is something that we've been working on for how long? To figure out how to do this, it seems,
Madam
huh?
Yeah.
Can I just clarify, so as part of the needs assessment, a survey instrument was developed by the survey professionals, and that went out to over 800 people in the community, which is a fairly robust response rate, I am told, by these consultants who do this for a living. And so, and they also did physical tabling at various events in which the survey was distributed. The survey went out on all of our social media channels. So that part of the assessment is complete, and may have already touched the interest groups you're mentioning. In fact,
Well, I mean, you're talking about 800, I mean, I basically was involved with the Survey Research Center. Is this in Berkeley, was this to some sort of random sample of 800 individuals? Who did it go out to?
This went out to previous program participants, to all of our co-sponsor groups. This went out on social media. They tabled at the farmer's market, at various soccer games. I mean, there's an entire list of events and places in which this was actually physically distributed. There wasn't like a randomized telephone sample, for example, or anything like that.
What I'm trying to figure out is whether it went to who we identify as various swim clubs.
Yes.
User groups are also
Yes,
surveyed.
Co-sponsored groups are all of that. So anybody that rents a city facility on behalf of an organization has an agreement with the city. So that would be aquatic users, that would be United, AYSO, DYSA, Little League, all of those groups would have then been encompassed into this.
Correct.
Well, I know that at least the leadership that I'm familiar with is Team Davis did not get that. As far, I mean, unless somebody else got it and Robin Dewey is not available, is not aware of it, because she's on.
I think this is a pretty big thing to take on, right? A needs assessment is not something that we can just whip up and shoot out, right?
I'm
And
not
it's,
suggesting that we take it on, I'm suggesting that we help. We
Sure.
contribute to it. I mean, we're saying, well, we don't have anything to talk about in October.
well,
So we can do this,
it does sound like that this has been disseminated to a consultant who clearly does this for a living. They've been solicited. It sounds like the needs assessment and surveying has been completed. I think that we need to trust the process and allow them to at least bring the initial feedback to the group to see if it's satisfactory. And at that time, we can make an evaluation or a recommendation and provide feedback to them if things were missed or user groups were not given an opportunity to provide feedback. I also recommend that if those user groups have specific things that they would like to discuss with us, to feel free to come in and make public comment during any of our meetings as well. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair?
Sorry,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to suggest, I mean, I just happened to read earlier today the previous master plan, and it was clear to me the needs assessment, the survey of the community was rather exhaustive, and I assume it hasn't been updated in a while. You're right, Commissioner Siegel, and but this process has now been done, and anything we suggest at this point would be duplicative, and I think probably we're best served to wait until we see this report and we can examine it and then see if we agree that their needs assessment efforts were sufficient they've already undertaken this effort.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I agree that this process has been underway for a while. There's been a strong effort to update that 2012 master plan. And
We're close.
I think bringing this forward from what has been worked on so far with the consultant to the commission allows the commissioners to review and have comment on it, but also public comment. And if there are groups that believe that they were missed, that's their opportunity during public comment to say, hey, you didn't talk to us, and this doesn't reflect our interest, or it does reflect our interest. So I think the process is underway. We need to follow that through and ensure that this topic gets on the agenda. And the only thing that's confusing to me is, do commissioners need to vote on that agenda item, or is it just?
Sounds like that you guys are going to bring it
Yeah.
as part of the process.
Okay.
Yes, this would be something that we as staff would bring forward to you.
Great. Commissioner LaFleur.
Yeah, I've,
Can I ask a
Just a
question?
second,
Yes.
go ahead, Commissioner LaFleur.
yeah, I agree in particular with Tim's comments. I think there's a very involved process underway, and I'd like to be briefed on it at some point. Not an end point, but once they have something cogent that they can bring to us that we can actually take a look at and have further discussion. I've worked with DUDEC on several state park-wide related projects, needs assessments, very complex, and I've been always impressed with their professionalism. I've always been impressed with how complicated and how deep needs assessments go to produce something that an agency can react to. So I guess I'm putting this out as a vote of confidence on DUDEC's work, and I look forward to seeing what they have to bring back for us.
Great. Commissioner Siegel, go ahead.
Well, I'll just be very brief, so that's fine. I mean, you know, I at prior meetings, that we were not given that information, quite frankly. We were told that the city council was gonna come up with guidelines for how we were supposed to go out. We were not told. This is news to me, and maybe I should have known this, that there was this company, this qualified company going out to do that. But I guess I have a more fundamental question. And the fundamental question is, what is the role of this commission? You know, are we just another pretty face at a pickleball dedication, court dedication? Is that kind of how we see ourselves? Show up, you know, maybe say a word or two. I've been at a couple of pickleball things, dedications. Are we sit here and listen to reports about summer programs? Interesting. I guess I would somehow, and I'm not sure exactly how to do this, I somehow feel like if we're going to take our time to do this stuff, we should be a bit more of an activist commission. And, you know, maybe others don't agree, but I mean, I've been at many dedications, the trees next to the university retirement, you and I, Bob, were there, and Tim and I were at the pickleball thing, dedication. And, I mean, I don't know, I'd like to think that, you know, what exactly is, maybe I should have figured this out a couple of years ago, evidently I haven't, but what is our role? I mean, you know, I'm fine with going to things and observing things, and listening to reports, but somehow I think that we could have a more, with the talent on this group, somehow I feel like we could have a more substantive contribution to what's going on. But maybe not. Maybe this is, you know, so anyway. that's
So
just-
in your packet this month, in the consent calendar, item 5, item B, was the approved purpose and function of the Recreation and Park Commission.
Right, okay, so I understand, so I'm discussing that.
Okay.
So I see that, I saw that, I guess I'm making a different comment. This stuff is written down, but I've now been at lots of meetings over several years, and I'm not sure. I'm in practice as opposed to in theory. The role of the commission.
Would you guys like to respond?
I mean, obviously, that your comment is noted, but if you're asking what your role and function are, the council determines what that is, and they've updated it, and that was in the consent packet. I can read it out loud if that helps to clarify.
I have it right here. I don't need you to read it right out loud. I'm making a more general comment. Maybe that doesn't resonate with anybody else. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Okay, at the risk of extending this already lengthy meeting, there is something I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring it up this summer when it was perhaps more timely, but I think it's still timely. Early this summer, when the owner of the Wild Horse Golf Course submitted an application to build a residential development there, it revealed a lot of public uncertainty about the status of that land and its function as a conservation easement. So, you know, if you look in the Parks Master Plan, you see it's a map, and the city's recreation assets, it's on there, and noted as a private golf course. But yet, if you look at the map of the city's open space and conservation easements, it says Wild Horse Golf Course is cited as, quote, a publicly owned conservation easement. So, you know, and in fact, the city is the grantee and holder of that conservation easement. So it's an unusual property, and it's publicly owned as a conservation easement, privately operated as a golf course. But I guess what never really came up in the discussion before the application was withdrawn, but it could be resubmitted or it could come up again, is some statement of the recreational value of this conservation easement to the city of Davis. Now, I did a little research and I was astounded that at Davis Municipal Golf Course, they had 55,000 rounds of golf played there last year. You know, I think that's a big number. And you know, try to divide that into days and daylight hours, and that's a lot of people teeing off every 15 minutes of every day. So and the city, unlike many cities, have city-owned and operated golf courses. Davis has not, it's chosen not to do that. It's got a wonderful lessee out at Davis Municipal Park. The city really doesn't have to do a whole lot other than collect their lease payments out there and be happy that 55,000 people are able to enjoy several hours outdoors walking and recreating. And we have this other asset that is a hybrid, but it's still clearly a publicly owned conservation easement. And I think someone, and this commission would be an appropriate body to express that, to say it is a valued recreational asset, and to perhaps write a letter to the council and stating our belief that the conservation easement needs to be maintained in perpetuity, as it said in the grant agreement, and our belief that its recreational value be considered in any future deliberations about the status of that conservation easement.
So this area is actually considered open space. So this is where it will not fall with, even though the recreational things can take place in that space, it doesn't fall under the Parks and Recreation Commission because it's designated as open space.
I totally get that, but what I'm saying is that our contribution to this is to state our belief.
So what you would do is you
outside
would
the council-
attend the
Yeah.
Open Space Commission and state that you are there as a community member, and you can also state that you are a Rec and Park Commissioner, and then sharing your public comment at their commission. This wouldn't be one that we would discuss here or put it on the agenda here for the Rec and Park Commission.
So what you're saying is, I go talk to I get permission from the.
We wouldn't agendize
Someone-
this topic
someone-
because it doesn't fit within our purview of areas that our department manages
Mhm.
and isn't considered the Parks and Recreation, a recreation space. It's considered open space. And the commission that has the designation to discuss that and what happens to it is open space. And so if you wanted to go there, you can go there and have a public comment as a resident, and then you can also state that you are also a commissioner, but we would not be able to agendize it here because it doesn't fall within our scope and function.
You know, I don't really find that, you know, I don't know what the sense of the commission is, so I mean, I personally can't, but if it was the sense of the commission that we wanted to just make the recreational value part of the discussion, or part of any future considerations, and leave it at that. I mean, we're not saying anything about the merits of amending or not amending the easement.
I think part of the problem is that even if we have open discussion or input here, the staff, this is not their issue area. So they can just look at us and shake their heads also, right? So
I can, excuse me, but on previous commissions, and unfortunately, I think I'm the senior member here now, is that there would be times when a commissioner would just, you know, propose a draft letter to the city council. We would vote on it, and we would send it to the city council. They could do with it what they want, but the commission would just expressing its opinion on a matter of public concern in the city of Davis from the recreational.
Commissioner Hurt, at this point, we're talking about just potential long-range calendar items, not in any type of discussion. And so I want to make sure that we're being careful, that we're not talking and having a discussion about a topic, because we don't have that agendized at this point, and we did not notice the public that this was something that would be discussed.
That's what I was suggesting. We put it on the agenda that perhaps a subcommittee of the commission.
What I can do is I can ask Open Space if this is an item on their agenda, and I can see if you can go as a liaison from this commission to their meeting, attend their meetings, and bring back information to this commission if it is related to anything in our department, our purview, and our scope and function.
But they wouldn't be able to respond to me because I'm not on their agenda.
Well, you would be as a liaison from this commission to their commission. That would be an option.
it would provide opportunity for feedback, and perhaps if there were items that did need to be agendized, that you could propose them at the time to bring them to the agenda, and then we can discuss them for you to then take feedback back to their commission.
Okay, we'll just put that aside. The one other thing I wanted to raise was, do we want to respond at all and ask that it be put on an agenda to act upon the request from the member of the public tonight who suggested the sign at the tribute sign at the pickleball court? Do we need to put that on the agenda for the next meeting?
No, we don't, because the decision-making actually would begin with the residents and the department, and then it would be the department to take it forward to council, and then
Okay, well,
council would.
yeah, I assume that can be done at a staff level, but I just wanted to acknowledge he made that request, and I want to make sure it didn't respond to.
I do want to circle back to your original, I think we've exhausted long-range calendar, and maybe I'm making an executive decision, but.
Just the use of, I am interested.
So can I,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
this is your
Yeah,
battery operated?
Yeah, that, yes.
So to be quite frank, I think that Dave did cover this in a couple of meetings ago. And I would appreciate, for time purposes, if you can review those minutes that he did talk about
Well, I
them.
remember very well the discussion, I don't need to review it.
I'm not sure you were at that meeting, but we can
Okay.
look at it.
Good.
And then I would be happy to entertain the discussion about battery operated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Murillo, do you want to revisit your original request of park visits or space visits or?
So since we don't have any agendized items for October, I would put down that we meet at 4 o'clock at Arroyo, where the new sunshade is, where that was installed. Start there and then go over to, I guess we had some, Nicole, you said some Sly Hill, some, yeah, Sly Hill, new stairs. And visit three things that were done there as our October meeting.
Can I request that we start at 5 o'clock? If we're just doing those two parks.
Sure.
I'm getting off of an airplane, so 4 o'clock for me is gonna be.
About 4:35.
You can talk to Southwest about that.
I'm fine, I mean, I think, well, if we have to take our flashlights out, we take our flashlights out, but 5 o'clock's fine.
Okay, thank you. Would you like, so that's a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay. Would anyone like to second that motion? Commissioner Ono, all in favor? Discussion? Are you sure, guys? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any opposed? Any abstain?
I'll abstain.
Okay, 1 abstention. Commissioner Hurd. Okay, so it looks like our next meeting will be at 5 p.m. on October 16th. And we will start at Arroyo Park to check out the shade structure, excuse me. And then we will move over to Slide Hill Park and look at the stairs and the water feature and, what did you call the other one?
Watchman.
Well,
One commissioner has to go down the slide.
Okay, great.
So, he makes it about
Commissioner Marigo.
Okay, last time I went down the slide, I broke my tailbone. That's what happened.
no injury reports, please.
Make sure you bring your cardboard, okay? All right. With that being said,
Before we adjourn, I know we're almost there, I just want to clarify that November would be Golden Heart Awards and banner policy, moving landscape standards to July.
and then we would also, can we also add the unmet needs of the summer programming to November's agenda since we're not going to be in person or in the chamber here?
Yeah.
Quick note,
Yes.
I'll be on a later flight that day for the October meeting, so I won't be able to make it.
Okay. All right, I think we have gone through our full agenda. So,
I'm not sure that, having been I'm not sure about that meeting, but maybe not, but other meetings in the discussion of changing the nature of the equipment that we use, I still think, in my view, that should be just progress. I'm just curious how we're doing. Are we 100% changed at this point? Battery operated?
I think that it's not an agendized item, so he can't answer that as a discussion item. So if you would like to have that as an agenda item for November,
Okay.
you can make a motion and ask Dave to please provide us with an update of their progress in terms of changing over to battery operated machinery.
Okay, consider that a motion.
Is there a second?
Let me raise
Okay.
an alternative here. If we're talking about the park maintenance standards from a city staff perspective and a contractor perspective, and electrification is part of those standards, why not bring it back then? Because then we'll get a fuller picture.
Well, I recognize, no, I just like to know more than every 6 months how we're doing. And I just feel like if you're gonna tell me that we're still using a lot of gas-operated equipment, and I just want to report, because I'm not sure, I'm not making even any suggestions, but I think, again, for reasons that are obvious in terms of the environment and everything else, we should know where we are in Davis in terms of using environmentally friendly equipment. And so I'm just asking to know where we stand on that. Is that?
So perhaps, would you like to see a progress report of the landscape maintenance standards instead of a full report of the annual year?
Well, I think I want to be fair to the contractor too.
Well, maybe that doesn't include the contractor. That can just be an update from Dave.
Madam Chair, we have a motion that I believe is not seconded.
so it's kind
Right.
of be appointed as well.
And I would say that from the department side of it, in order to not duplicate efforts, like if we're going to have this agendized for July, I would rather our department focus on having a more comprehensive report in July instead of having something that's mid-year and then again in July, just on staff time-wise. That would be preference, instead
I
of
think
doing
we went
something twice.
into
So let me
comment
be
before we
clear.
got
Let
to
me be clear.
clarify that there was no second motion,
If there's
so.
no second to that, so, fine. So you're talking about, this is September, right? Am I incorrect? So you
Mr.
want to
Singh,
have a report? in
Commissioner Sigal, I'm not gonna
July,
get into
July?
a discussion with this. I'm just,
Well,
I'm stating from the
I'm
staffing
not-
perspective that it's preferred that we do a report once instead of
I would
twice.
appreciate it if you didn't interrupt me when I speak. This is September of 2024, and what is being suggested is we wait for July of 2025 before we have a discussion of whether or not, and of course, we had this raised about a year ago, so if that's the will of the commission, that's fine with me. But we're, just to be clear, we're talking about July of 2025 for this report. Is that what you're talking about, Bob?
I also think that the landscape maintenance standards were just put into place, so to be fair to the city staff and the contractors, you may not even get an accurate report or progress report if we do it for next month and give them a full opportunity to implement their plan over the next year. So,
That's the will
okay.
of the commission, that's.
all right, I think that's any other items to discuss. I think we're gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 9:06. Thank you.